Well, hi there. It's Charlie with Charlie Slybox, and sitting next to me is Garrison Doctor from Rep Your Water. And if you don't know Garrison, you're about to get to know Garrison. Garrison has been, how long have you been an Umpqua Signature Tire?
Boy, it's been 5, 6 years now, I think.
He's been an Umpqua Signature Tire for 5 or 6 years now. And what'd you do before that?
Well, let's see.
How were you able to scrape by before all your fly royalties?
Well, my background is in art and design, so I'm an artist by training. I still do a lot of fine art, but my passion's always been fly fishing. So I melded those two things together and started a little apparel company that you so lovingly sell for us, which I appreciate, called Rep Your Water. Hats, shirts, sun hoodies, etc.
Socks.
Accessories, socks. Yes. So that keeps me busy. That's my actual day job. But I tie flies almost every day. I love tying, and I have for years. It's like a meditative outlet in a different way for me than drawing is. Like drawing requires like daytime focus levels.
Sure.
And tying can be like a way for me to really
a little bit more relaxing.
Yeah, there's still creativity to it, right? It's still a creative outlet, but it has that meditative, repetitive quality as well. When you're like, hey, I'm going to work on a dozen bugs, you know?
Sure.
Yeah.
So we're going to have a visitor.
Yes.
So you've got, over the last 5, 6 years, do we have all of them here?
No, we have the Sweetmeat Sally is not represented on the table here, and there's, well, a couple different weights and sizes, obviously, of some of these. But for the most part, this is the range.
I want to come back to the art stuff, but we'll do that after we talk about these slides. Tell us about the Sweetmeat. You know, I did an article in one of the in the Fly Fisherman Fly Tires bench on that several years ago, a few years ago. So I know a little bit of the background on it already. But tell me about how you came up with that and where you were at in your life when you did.
You know, this is a bug.
And I'm preloading you because you already told me this.
Yeah, that's right. This is a bug that I tied for years in various iterations. And there's a couple different pieces to it. One is the color combinations, right? Which are very caddisy, but also just great attractor pieces, right? So the golden olive wire with the UV iced up brown that comes off with that like purpley kind of blue
sheen.
Yeah. For whatever reason, money. So I found that out in a few iterations, right? The black peacock with that kind of greenish, and then the matte ginger, also money, right? So then, you know, playing with profiles, the CDC tuft that's just on the hook point side of the fly is relatively unique. I like that because it helps facilitate it to ride hook point up. Right? Because you have more of the material, obviously, on the hook point side. And I think as that thing sort of like turns and moves in the current, that tuft of CDC movement and the flashes of the wire coming out.
But I think CDC on a nymph is one of the best things that you can do. You know,
100%.
You know, more common these days, but you know, I remember seeing the first. I think it was a CDC Prince way back when.
Yes.
And honestly, when I first saw it, I was like, "Why in the world would you put CDC on a nymph?"
And that was my reaction as well.
Then you fish those flies and you see how wiggly they are.
The whole point of CDC was that it floats.
Right, exactly. Like, why would you waste good CDC on a nymph? But
totally.
I remember fishing a CDC pheasant tail and just destroying them, and then immediately being sold on it. So, you know, we sell tons of these. I mean, it seems like we reorder them every week, every 2 weeks. We sell tons and tons of them. So, you know, obviously a great dry dropper fly. Did you tell me Boulder Creek is where you came up with that?
Mainly fishing. Yeah, Boulder Creek is like my home water.
That's your home,
So a lot of Boulder Creek stuff, but then a lot of stuff on, you know, the Blue, the Eagle, the Upper Colorado, which is sort of like my home water that's a little bit further afield, more opportunity. Right? Yes.
And the Sweetmeat Sally is the Yellow Sally version.
Correct, yes. And it has, you know, similar construction, different colorway. It has a ribbed wire thread body.
Gotcha.
And it has micro legs, like, you know, giving us a little bit more stonefly leg to it. But similar construction.
And well, and you know, easy takeoff from that.
Yes.
I mean, once you find something that works, you know.
Absolutely.
I'm fairly familiar with that technique as well.
You are.
Yeah, for sure.
Yep.
So these next two are what the Flexi Stone was last year.
Correct.
So let's go to the Flexi Stone. The Flexi Stone is one of the coolest stone flies any of us have seen. We sold tons of these too. Just the curb appeal of that thing is pretty crazy.
Yeah.
But built, completely different than anything else anybody's seen.
Yeah.
Where'd the idea for that come from? How'd you come around to that? And obviously, you may hold the fly tying and art separately, but it's pretty clearly an artistic fly.
Yeah, they bleed into each other, right?
Sure.
This came, of course, from tying saltwater stuff.
Okay.
Right? And tying a bunch of Aflexo crabs.
Okay.
And so using this material a bunch, and then started to figure out where I could source it in different colors.
Sure.
And push the envelope there. And then started to look at the colors that were available in this material and think about this material. And somebody once told me, as you have done very well, that one thing that can make an incredible new fly is if you can use a material in a way it's never been used.
Sure.
That is very effective, right? Yeah. And that's hard to do.
It is hard to do. It is.
Like,
so much stuff. I mean, I look at materials these days, especially new materials, and the obvious use goes right out the window first thing because everybody's going to do that.
Right.
I try to think of a different way to do it, and that's a pretty good different way to do it for sure.
Yeah, and I was looking at these crabs and like obviously one of the things that make, especially when it's flared into a crab body, becomes even more translucent, right? But that ability to see through into it and that translucent shell.
In the case of that crab, and honestly, same thing on this. That's a fairly bulky fly, but it's pass through. There's no resistance. It's not all bulk, and so I think the same thing goes on the Aflexo crab. Is that fly really? It has a big outside profile. Like I talk about that on streamer design all the time. A big outside profile, but without all the guts in the middle to make it heavy to cast, slow to sink, any of that. That's where materials like that.
Yeah,
that's a good use of that material.
Exactly right. So I started messing with stoneflies because I was like, they can have a little bit of that almost translucent feel.
Sure.
And I think it just looks natural and buggy.
Well, and I think that translucency too. People think of translucency like you hold a bug up and you can kind of see through it or get light through it. And stoneflies maybe don't have that like a crest bug or a scud might.
Right.
But what I think you do get out of that is depth. You get more depth to it and more, I say the illusion of life. Grizzly hackle, speckled rubber legs, things like that look like they're moving. All those little holes in that as that fly tumbles and moves, looks like it's moving even when it's not moving.
That texture, exactly. And then, I'm a believer in a hot spot,
right?
On a lot of things.
Sure.
Like, depends on the water, but like something to draw a little bit of attention. Sure. And these guys have, a hot spot with the beads in the abdomen, which you can see through to the material, right? So it's a hot spot, but it's not.
It's subtle.
In your face, right? But there's a little bit of that interest, which makes the fly really effective. And the other thing is just the profile, like you said, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Like if you look at most of the larger stonefly nymphs that are on the market, a lot of chenille rat bugs, they're great. Very effective, but they don't hold wing case profile very well.
No,
right. And if you look at a stonefly, like a huge portion of that bug's body,
more than 50% of it
is wing case profile, right? Like it's a big chunk. So this thing gives you 360-degree wing case profile, right? Which, like in bigger water,
us old guys call that tied in the round. That's how old flies were tied.
There you go.
That was the best flies. Were the flies that looked the same from any direction, so no matter where they tumbled, the fish were getting the same look.
Perfect. So this
you're just
this is tied in the round.
Of course it is.
Yes.
Of course it is.
Yes.
It'd be the obvious way to do it, Garrison.
Yep. So that's the Flexi Stone. it's tied on the old school hook that is like a bent shank design, right?
Sure.
So with the up eye or down eye, and the bent shank, it will want to keel hook point up.
Hook point up, okay.
A bit, which is nice because obviously you're bouncing around on the rocks, right?
And it's got a few beads in it.
It does. It has three brass beads, and then, like you said, with the material, which is not buoyant, it goes down. Like this is a bug that is meant to get down in heavy water,
and stay down.
In high water, right? Provide that profile. I played around with all different weights, and like for a while, I was like, I'll just put one tungsten bead on the front. No, It's way too much. It becomes you have to like pick it up and move it off the bottom. It's like, no,
my 2-bit stone. I did the same thing. I was like, 3 tungsten beads will be awesome. Just immediately anchored into the bottom. Lose one right after the other as fast as you can. Exactly. Like, okay, that's too much. Exactly. Yeah, that's too much.
And it's not the cheapest. It's not the cheapest stone fly on the market, so you don't really want to just be like ripping them off. Yeah,
next.
Yeah.
Well, that's awesome, man. We like it. It sells well. If you haven't fished that one, you should. At some point, I'll have you show me how. I sat next to Garrison at the West Denver TU thing this year, and all day tried to watch him tie one of these and never got to see the whole process. I think I saw the tail and the first part of the body about 8 times in a row and never saw the rest of it. So I don't actually know how to tie this yet. I could sort of infer, but I'm going to make Garrison show me how to tie this, and we'll do a video on it.
I'd love to see you tie one. It's a fun tie. It's cool. I mean, you have to tie in and out a few times. Is the only annoying thing, right? Sort of necessitated by
start and stop
tied in the round profile we're getting of that material, but otherwise it's actually not that bad. It's pretty fun.
It looks fun. So, all right, so we'll put that on the calendar to do. What else you got? You got this new fly.
Yeah, so this is new. This is the Game Bird. It is a jig streamer. It gets its name from a pheasant back collar. I love to do some upland hunting.
Sure.
I love to hunt birds, and I love to utilize those feathers when I'm tying as much as I can. And so, I've been fishing more and more of these like smaller and mid-sized streamers that I can drop down, and they're just so versatile. Like if I'm floating and ripping something off a structure real fast, I don't want anything on a jig.
Sure.
Right? Like I want a straight. I don't want any
inline pull.
Yep. Yeah. I don't want anything in the way of that hook gap, right? You're cranking it, right? But this smaller jig style is really versatile. You can pop it and drop it. You can let it go down and just kind of barely move it.
Sure.
You can rip it and then let that jig just kind of flutter.
Kind of die,
and fall, which can be really interesting. It's just really versatile. And you can fish it in a lot of our Colorado rivers, kind of underneath current, in a way that like the fish that are moving around under there just aren't seeing a lot.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Everybody thinks streamers and you think of rip, fast moving, kind of get it in, get it out. A fly like that is something that you can, we were just talking about that. Just put it down there and let it hang around with them.
100%. And most of the time I fish it, I'm not moving it that much.
Really?
Like I want it to look alive. And stay as tight to it as I can.
I think one of the cool things about a fly like that with a dry dropper rig or particularly for beginners, but a dry dropper rig or even an indicator rig, is bad mins are sort of good. Aggressive mins are sort of good. Kind of twitch that fly a little bit. Just, what you're always trying to avoid with a typical nymph rig. A fly like that, and maybe that with something else behind it, hopping that fly around kind of cushions that second fly a little bit as well.
Totally. But I was just out east, very technical fishery, was fishing like the west branch of the Delaware. And there just wasn't a whole lot going on in terms of hatches. And I started fishing one of these in white. It was just like, they're brown trout.
Sure.
Let's get a reaction, And I was like, big, not fishing it on your rod or anything, right? Like big, long cast, big mend off the bank, and then just let it die.
Really?
Just get smoked on that.
Now, are you seeing the strike? Are you feeling the strike? What
in that scenario? No. Almost never with that thing.
Really?
Hopefully, it's swimming around down where I can't see it. Yeah. That's where something big is.
And it's got obviously a big tungsten bead on it.
It's got a big tungsten bead on it, so it will get down. It's made for that, and that pheasant back collar is going to create a little bit of front profile.
Sure.
Right?
This could be a lot of things. This could be a sculpin. This could be a leech.
Exactly.
A lot of different things.
And this is actually my favorite colorway, this tan brown black. It's got a UV tan dub body, so it has a kind of like, that bluey purple UV sparkle with the texture and barring of that pheasant back feather over top. A little bit of a hot spot, right? On the white, on the white and the tan. The black,
got a straight earth tone.
Yeah, the mottled olive I kept kind of more natural for that kind of sculpin, stealthier, dark profile.
Yeah.
There's a black purple too, that's like,
Is it black and purple?
Yeah. I heard somebody refer to purple as bright black, one time,
that might
and
be a
I
good way to
thought
put
that was kind of
a little brighter black.
hilarious
That's
and accurate. You know, you think about like tarpon flies or whatever; it's basically bright
bright
black.
black.
Yeah.
Now, does this have lead on it too, or is it just the bead?
Just the bead.
Just the bead. That's a nice stout bead.
Yeah.
I don't even know what size bead that is. It's a large size tungsten bead. These are size 8s?
Yeah, I think this is a 10, if I remember correctly. 8 or a 10, and I think it's a 4 mil bead.
4 mil? Yep.
So it's a chunk of tungsten on the front.
1 3/4.
Yeah.
Yeah, small little streamer. That's pretty good thinking.
And you know, it's
I like the 3 colors too, not all one color.
Right.
Save for the white.
And really, like I said, just super versatile. Like you can strip it, you can pop it, you can pretty much, I mean, you can dead drift it completely if you want. Like you said, fish it under an indicator. Sort of an underutilized technique, I
absolutely.
think.
Yep.
That's really effective. People don't realize how much our flies are moving under an indicator, as much as we would like to think that they're not, but
drifting,
usually they are moving quite a bit. And to your point, then when you do move them, great, so you just get a pop and drop.
I remember years ago John Barr telling me about getting strikes on the mend, so he would mend it super aggressively, and I was watching him do it, and I was like, "What are you doing? You're not getting a dead drift." He's like, "I'm not trying to," and that you move those flies around, and I think what it does is even with regular nymphs, it gets them up in the water column, and then they're dropping again, so it kind of extends that drift. But a fly like that could do anything anywhere along the way. That's a pretty. And like you say, that's versatile. You can do that a lot of different things with that.
Bunch of different places. Like was great in Iceland for trout there. Like really effective for their big browns. Some of the biggest fish I've caught in Patagonia and Chile have been on this fly. There's a lot of lakes that I've fished that have like really weird structure. You remember that troll in the hole video I posted a couple years ago of that fish in the hole that's connected to the lake? Like, that's the fly.
Really?
You dump that thing in a drop-off or in a hole, and it'll go down quick, and then
just drag them up through the dirt.
Yeah.
So you've been, as you've mentioned, a few different places in the world. Tell me, what's your favorite spot you've been to so far?
Well, let's see. Patagonia in Chile is a spot that, like, I could live there.
Yeah.
I would love to spend a lot of time there. The climate, the people, the variation of trout fishing at your fingertips.
Yeah.
Big fish, still water, huge lakes, small creeks, big rivers. I could spend a lot of time there. The more like exotic, like hot weather locations, I love, and I always can't wait to go back. But it's like 10 days.
Time to come home. Yeah.
I got to get out. Yeah. Like, man, I got a sweat rash. I'm like a wreck. Like,
we're not made for that sort of thing.
Man, my people are from the north, I think. I'm like, I got to get out of here. Yeah, put me in Iceland or Chile or something, and I'm just happy as a clam, you know?
What, tell us about the fishing there. What, you obviously fish this kind of the streamer stuff. Is it dry fly fishing? Is it
a lot of dry fly fishing?
Very trout fishing like here?
Yes, except it's just a lot less technical just because overall the fisheries are so much less pressured that, I'm usually targeting fisheries that are primarily brown trout, but there's some really nice rainbow trout fisheries too. But the browns they really act like browns.
Yeah.
So there's almost no need to fish nymphs. In other words, like you would just
right up my alley.
Usually fish in larger dries unless there's some sort of strange hatch or streamers.
Nice.
Right? Like that's kind of it. The funny thing down there is like they have all the same bugs, right?
Really?
Not usually stoneflies this big. They have smaller stones.
Okay.
But they have mayflies, they have caddisflies, they have all of our hatches, leeches, scuds, damsels, the whole thing. But then the terrestrials are a whole different game, right? Because there's so many of these huge beetles. Like that's where the stag beetles that like fight each other on the branches, that's where they are. I mean, the things, you see them fly and you're like, is that a hummingbird?
That's a real bug. Yeah.
Oh, it's a beetle. So the amount of these bigger terrestrials makes the dry fly fishing really fun.
I've heard that area down there called, like the Rockies would be 100 years ago. That's pretty much what you just described. Not the fishing pressure. And
exactly.
Pretty wild, untouched fish that
exactly
cooperate.
The difference is that there's a lot more water.
Is there? Is there?
Just in general, like it's a wetter area of the world,
sure,
right?
Sure.
And Chile is like, obviously on the Pacific side, right? And so it gets all the moisture. The Argentine side is the rain shadow,
Gotcha. Okay.
So the Argentine side is spectacular, and they get a lot of their water from the like glaciers and snowpack on the top of the mountains, right?
Sure.
That's getting dumped over. But Chile has so much water and so much spring-fed activity. And you know how that is. Like if you have a system that has a massive amount of spring water dumping into it at a constant 53 degrees, that's high nutrient base, well, you just made yourself a baseline.
A pretty good fish factory.
For so much food.
Absolutely.
Right? So the spring-fed pieces and then just the amount of water at your fingertips makes it a little bit different even than if you pictured Colorado back in the day, because it's just bigger pieces of water.
Sounds like someplace I should go.
You should. You would like it.
You said you talked about some of the saltwater stuff. Where's your favorite saltwater spot?
Well,
exactly, we were like the GPS coordinates.
We were very lucky to be able to go to one of the outer islands of the Seychelles a couple years ago, and we're going back actually this winter. And that's like, it's pretty amazing.
Yeah,
it's just such an intact marine ecosystem. Nothing is happening there. There's,
right.
The atoll that we went to is Astov Atoll, and like, there's a research station, a tiny airstrip that some guys like maintain, and then this little lodge in a little tiny ring.
There's no resort.
It's nothing.
Nothing. Yeah, sounds ideal.
Yeah, so these fish are just like, and it like I said, it's intact. The sharks, the turtles, the blue water
everything
stuff,
that's supposed to be there is
all
there.
There going bananas, and I like the GTs for me, like it's such a physical saltwater game.
Sure.
Like most other big saltwater game fish that you would hook on a flat type scenario, right? Tarpon, incredible fighters, but they're not going to go to structure and screw you in structure usually, right? They're going to run, jump,
scared,
go bananas. Like
permit
are going to run like crazy.
A tarpon, as big as it is still a bait fish, and he's scared. Yeah,
like when you hook a GT,
predator. Yeah,
he knows where the structure is, and he's going there with everything he's got. And if he gets there, your fly line's gone.
Yeah.
So you have to stop him from getting there. So that like angry physicality.
Sure.
I just think
one of you's going to lose.
Awesome, exactly.
Oh, that sounds awesome. So one of the things that you talked about to begin with is the art stuff, and that's one of the things that's always you were here for our Umpqua Day last March, and you did a drawing while you were here, and that's one of the things we've talked about it a bunch. One of the things I enjoy most is just watching you draw and how it was busy that day, and I remember you had just sat down and like did a little pencil outline, and I came back in 10 minutes and it was it wasn't done, but I would have called it done. I mean, very, very well along, picture of a rainbow trout, and how good you are at that. And that's not by happenstance. You're a trained artist. Tell us more about that. That's, I think, something these days, there's a lot of people that are maybe not trained artists and maybe don't quite have the skill level that you do. And I'm not, blowing your horn here, but I'm going to blow your horn. You're very good at it.
Well, thank you.
And there's not many people in the world who can do what you do. Tell us how you got there. Were you always interested in art as a kid?
I was, and both of my parents are artists. So I had
really
like a pen or a pencil in my hand from before I could remember.
Now, are they trained artists as well?
Trained, yes, like in their own ways, but very different from me. My mother is a very high level, like calligrapher, abstract artist. She does these huge mixed media kind of abstract paintings. My dad was a very high level architectural illustrator. So on the other side of things, like really meticulous, technical, right? So he had a very lucrative and successful career doing art, architectural renderings before we had computer models that could do a good job at it. Right?
Now, did you grow up here in Colorado?
I did. Yep. From Boulder originally.
Oh, yeah. Okay. I thought I remembered that.
Yep. So I grew up with those sort of meld of things, but then, like I said, my passion is fly fishing and being outside and some hunting and wherever else I can get into. So when I started, really getting more into art, it was drawing and painting those things,
sure.
right? So in college, I did like really big, like 8-foot by 5-foot charcoal and pastel pieces of different animal species and that type of thing.
I've seen a lot of your stuff. I mean, it seems, everybody in this industry anyway knows you for the fishing stuff, but I've seen a lot of the other stuff that you've done.
Yeah.
Of various game birds, and now that's all part of Rep Your Water too.
Yes. Yep. Some of that is as well.
So much of that is much more broad than I think a lot of us think of Rep Your Water as.
Yeah.
Um,
But trout are so fun to draw.
Oh yeah,
they're
absolutely.
so cool, and every brown trout, as we know, is different.
Yep.
And then, the morphology, the life history changes from wherever they live, even month to month.
Sure.
They can be darker or lighter or more colorful or not.
Sort of an endless subject.
Yeah, they never get old.
Yeah.
Right? Because you catch one and be like, well, that's
different.
That's cool.
That's not the same.
That's cool. I caught a brown last time we were in Chile out of this huge, really milky glacial lake. So this fish was like turquoise on top, and then just chrome, like looked like a sea run fish.
Sure.
Right? No like dark
no
color,
brown color to it. Yeah.
At all. Still a brown trout.
Yep.
Same genetics.
Yep.
Right? So
just
fish are fun for me to draw because they're so different, because there's so much variation. If I'm doing live art at an event, I love talking to the kids, and because the kids will come right up and be like, what are you up to? What are you drawing?
Sure.
How's it going? And they're always like, how are you so good at this? You're just drawing a trout. And I'm like, well, I've drawn a lot of these. But don't underestimate
the first one I've done. Yeah.
Practice and repetition, my little friend.
Absolutely.
Like there is a lot.
Well, and it's that's one of the things that is painfully obvious watching you is you have done all of that before. Exactly. I am not much of an artist. I doodle and draw, but to watch you do it is a pretty special treat. It's pretty cool.
Well, I appreciate that, and you know how that is with repetition. It's like watching you tie a fly. You can tell just by how you manipulate the thread in very subtle ways to latch a material and finish a fly.
Well, and I think that's probably why I appreciate what you do so much. Yeah.
It looks effortless.
Well, when you do it right, it should.
Right.
When you've done it a lot and do it right, it should.
Yeah.
That's awesome, man. I was excited about that. I think I've got everything I came for.
Sweet meat caddis, game birds, flexi stones,
Rep Your Water stuff.
Rep Your Water
shirts, hats, socks.
Materials at Charlie's Fly Box.
Yeah, we do have some materials.
Sun hoodies. I'm going to buy way too many materials right now.
That'll work out perfectly. These things always work out that way.
Great.
Well, that's awesome. That was Garrison Doctor telling me all about his life and how awesome it is. And we just sit here in Colorado and don't go to Iceland or places like that. But someday maybe we will, and we'll tag along with him. And when we do, we'll bring.
Colorado's awesome. I still fish the crap out of Colorado. I love it.
Well, while you're away, we'll be here. Max Little Spoon Boshin.
Good.
That's his new nickname. He doesn't know it yet, but we call him Little Spoon when he's not around.
Love it.
And then we'll introduce Big Spoon later.
Yeah, there you go.
Little Spoon will come with us. He'll keep the water around here busy. But that was me and Garrison talking about his flies. And you know where to get them, charliesflybox.com. Check it out. If you have questions, put them in the comments below. Garrison probably won't answer them because he'll be off on some exotic travel trip.
I hope so.
But I'll make up some answer, and hopefully it'll be good enough. So thanks for watching, you guys. Take care.
Cheers.